Thank you for talking to us about this decision that the school board voted on last night. But looking back, do you regret not making the decision to close these schools earlier in the school year?
Regret? No, absolutely not. I attempted to in the fall. Remember, it was 10, then 5, then 2 of the 3 that happened yesterday night. I knew that we had to make a decision, so my recommendation has been consistent. When I came on board, don't know if the community remembers, there were 19 schools on the list. And I needed to wrap my head around the process, the impact, so I stopped that process. I re-engaged the community, created the Declining Enrollment Advisory Committee. I want to thank them because that was the anchor in terms of helping us identify the schools. So we've honored that criteria, which to me is community-led. And then we applied it, and then in the fall it was unsuccessful, and I think that was because this is so difficult. Not because it was the wrong decision then, it was in the fall, it was in the spring. It's just not easy to do. We saw how emotional it was for everyone yesterday. The reason my team wasn't in tears was because we probably had the tears every evening when we left the community meetings. It was a difficult roadshow.
Absolutely. Let's talk about the fact that there are other schools that are still on that list of having concerning levels of enrollment. After last night's decision, do you have any thoughts on a timeline for when you will next have to look at other school closures or phasing out certain grade levels? Are those talks happening?
Yes, they are internally, but we also have contracted with an outside agency to help us facilitate the longer process. So at the moment, we've identified 12 schools who have historically shown and trended to have a continuous declining enrollment. However, that can even change. I don't want to cause a little bit more hysteria, but we have school choice, so we have to let that puzzle piece and that cookie crumble. Then we have to wait until not only August, September, and ultimately October, because that's when we have what we call D-Day, October count, to see if those 12 schools had an influx of students, which is very possible. At the same rate, other schools that are not in that dozen can also dip under the critically low threshold. So we have to wait and see, but the most important is that we, at the end of this month actually, so please tune in. If it's not the 20th, the 23rd, I plan to explain the process, and it's going to be a longer process, so we can anticipate the communities who may be identified to engage with us for the entire year. So no decision until the end of next academic year. So we have a little bit more of a breathing room because we have to make sure that we know exactly what we're dealing with. With these 3 schools, there's a very good chance that some exercise their choice to go to some of these other schools. So we have to just let it play out.
Okay, interesting. So what I'm hearing is that this time next year, we will not have schools that will be closing at the end of the 2023-24 year.
That is probable.
Okay.
It's hard to say definitively.
Sure.
There could be a situation in which we have operational closure because it's critically low.
Okay.
But ideally,
okay.
Can you accept that?
Absolutely, absolutely. For Fairview Elementary, of course, we've heard from the Denver Housing Authority. They made a presentation. You've been in talks with them. They believe that the Sun Valley neighborhood is growing, that there could be enough population there to support keeping an elementary school open. Are there any plans to continue discussions on that, or do you take issue with their numbers, their figures?
No, don't take issue. And I want to say that I really hope that they are accurate because everybody wins. Sun Valley wins, our school is still there, and we can reunite our scholars with their home school. So I really hope that the DHA projections are accurate. The reality is that there's been a whole lot of promise of students returning. Residents, we've heard the number 900 residents, which will be great for Sun Valley. School-aged children is what we need. Right? And what we've learned is that 44% of those in that community choice elsewhere. So there's no guarantee that those who are returning will choose Fairview. So that's, I guess, one of the cons of choice, if you will, right? When it comes to really supporting and uplifting a neighborhood school. So we have to just wait and see, and we're prepared. If that's the case, then we'll continue to, maybe we'll change our approach. Perhaps it's a little bit more of knocking on the door saying, do you know that you have a great school here?
Okay.
Because maybe that's the fix that that community needs.
Not to give parents false hope then, could Fairview Elementary then stay open or reopen then at some point?
At some point, absolutely. It won't be next year.
Okay.
I think the earliest could be a year out, and definitely closer to the 2026, 2027 when that construction is all complete. So very much part of how we plan to engage with the community, but also leaving that school ready to receive students.
Is DPS making any plans for what to do with the buildings at this point?
Well, it's only one building.
Okay.
So DDS is in the shared campus with the Swigert International School, and MSLA has several other schools in that capacity. So it is a school. They are schools, I should say, but they've had a floor and maybe classrooms. So at that point, there's always a need to use extra space. Fairview is the one that has potentially an empty building. But even for next year, we are identifying some programs that we can possibly shift in there. I said that yesterday, there will be student activity at Fairview next year.
Interesting. East High School students have been talking to lawmakers and the community recently about violence in and around their school. Is there any discussion in DPS right now about bringing back school resource officers?
Yeah. I want to thank our students to organize that incredible event yesterday. Mm-hmm. And not only was it done professionally, it was moderated at an expert level. So incredibly proud to lead this organization where students can assemble that group of decision makers and even influencers in the city of Denver. There was conversation about SROs, but what I loved yesterday evening is that the conversation went well beyond that. There is some desire from the community. At the same rate, I've heard tremendous amount of folks who are saying that is not the answer. I know our Board of Education tomorrow, some members of the board will be engaging with Moms and Man Action, and I'm pretty sure that that's going to come up. And I know our board is very responsive when it comes to the community needs. So I would say that there is a possibility that needs to be communicated to the Board of Education. What was exciting about yesterday is that I heard about laws that are being considered. I hate to say it, harsher penalties for those who break those laws, mm-hmm. and how to limit the access to firearms. My part yesterday was really explaining the root cause. Perhaps that's the educator in me, right? Mm-hmm. SROs, there's a good debate. They can or they hurt in another way. Mm-hmm. What we do have is a great relationship with Chief Thomas. I had it with Chief Payson, who was his predecessor, and we're going to continue having that relationship. Excited about PEERS, which is an acronym, Police Establishing Equitable Relationships with Students. That's our way to making sure that our educators and our civil servant partners, which are policemen and women, are seen as support systems and anchors in the community. Excited about that. But until we address that root cause, students who have access to perhaps an adult's weapon who hasn't been lawfully secured, or in the black market, which we learned yesterday, there's a whole lot of that. Let's address that, yeah. Right? Because our hallways aren't scary. Mm-hmm. Our educators aren't monsters. No, the threat is coming from outside of our school.
I hope to talk more about that with you in the future.
All right, thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Marrero.
Thank you,